The lawn in front of Westwood High School's education building was bathed in pale autumn sunlight, filling the air with a scent of withered leaves and the faint aroma of coffee drifting through the hallway. In this foreign land, where everything was new to the international students, two figures still stood out amid the bustling crowds. Isabella Montgomery, the English heiress, the only daughter of the financial conglomerate Montgomery and Company, tall and slender, her blonde hair always cascading in glossy waves. She dressed impeccably in a preppy style, thin-collared sweaters, pastel-pleated skirts, and polished Oxford shoes. Isabella's footsteps on the gray tile floor left marks like the strokes of a ruler, announcing the arrival of that beautiful girl. Her face was ever bright with a radiant smile, her eyes sparkling like crystal, enough to make any boy turn and stare. Ethan Carter, an American of Mexican descent, raised in a poor working-class neighborhood, who had to hustle with part-time jobs after school from a young age. He was cold and contemplative, his angular face revealing masculine features. Ethan wore a simple uniform, a white shirt, dark dress pants, and a straw gray backpack slung over his shoulder, indifferent to fashion trends. His gaze was fixed on horizons beyond the mundane concerns of school, textbooks, mathematical formulas, and the pressure to win a scholarship to a prestigious university. Since their freshman year, Isabella had been eyeing Ethan. She'd always greeted him with a smile, waved at him, and even tried to arrange to share study group tables. She meticulously prepared every charming phrase, baked cupcakes with her own hands, and crafted delicate decorative notes, but Ethan remained cold and aloof. He would merely nod politely in return, then refocus on the lecture. One drizzly October afternoon, the Westwood sky was overcast with fine rain. In the small corner library, Isabella placed a box of macaron on the table, her eyes lighting up. "Ethan, I made these, try one." He hadn't looked up yet, he merely smiled slightly and answered, "Thanks, but I can't eat many sweets." That tactful refusal was enough to decline without wounding her pride, but also enough to make her heart tighten. Isabella never lost heart. She conferred with her two best friends, the Golden Trio, as she dubbed them, Marissa and Claire. They devised strategies, sending flowers, writing handwritten letters, gifting engraved fountain pens, even inviting Ethan to a Japanese animated film over the weekend. Yet the more proactive she was, the more he evaded her. Ethan always found excuses, busy reviewing for exams, urgent assignments, having to help my mom with extra work. Until one winter morning, snow fell silently, blanketing the school in white. Isabella chanced upon Ethan in the library as he was intently reading an advanced reference book. She stood by the bookshelf, her heart racing, carefully choosing her words. "Ethan, could I ask you a few questions about applied mathematics?" He looked up, his deep black eyes a little surprised, then nodded. "Sure, go ahead." His warm, resonant voice made Isabella feel as if the whole world had stopped. They sat side by side, she handed him her assignment, and he explained step by step. After half an hour, dusk had fallen outside the window, street lamps shimmering. Isabella realized that hearing him teach for the first time felt more intense than any attention she had ever received. Yet when they parted, Ethan only said, "Submit your draft tomorrow and show it to me, okay?" And she still smiled. "Yes, thank you." The final months of senior year flew by in the flurry of exam preparation. Isabella remained passionately in pursuit of her heart. Ethan maintained his academic excellence, not at all swayed by her gaze. No one knew that, in Ethan's heart, she was always there, like a faint yet warm ray of sunlight seeping through the winter branches. And then one late winter day, Isabella received news that her mother had just signed the liquidation papers for one of the group's subsidiaries due to severe losses. She sat silently in her upscale bedroom, staring at the white walls where academic awards once hung, and suddenly broke down in tears. Meanwhile, Ethan in his dorm on the east side of the city was still hard at work drafting his outline for the first exam. The sense of emptiness, loneliness, and fear had never overwhelmed her so swiftly. Yet what she didn't know was that fate was preparing twists to test them both. At dawn, pale apricot rays of sunshine streamed through the classroom window, casting warm patches of light across the walnut wood desks. The bell signaling the start of class rang softly, but to Isabella, the world seemed to stop when she spotted Ethan's familiar figure walking down the hallway. She sat at her desk with hands clasped, her eyes glistening as she watched him. Her heart pounded as though preparing for a grand performance she had written and rewritten hundreds of times. Today, she had resolved to speak her truth, all her sweetness, all her hopes, all her dreams. She had drafted a 2-page handwritten letter, every line the most sincere expression of her heart. Isabella took a deep breath, rose gently from her seat with the letter in hand, and approached Ethan, leaning against the wall by the classroom door, staring out at the schoolyard. Her heart felt ready to leap from her chest, determination shone in her eyes. "Ethan, could you spare me a minute?" Ethan turned, surprise and slight embarrassment flickering in his dark eyes. His deep brown hair was tousled from a night of studying, making his serious features even more compelling. He hesitated, then answered softly. What is it?" "I'm reviewing for the chemistry test this weekend." In the quiet hallway of the early summer morning, with only leaves rustling outside, Isabella felt hot tears well at her eyes, but she forced them down and swallowed her fear. I wrote this letter for you. Please read it and tell me how you feel." She held out the envelope, her hand trembling slightly. Ethan looked at the handwriting in the corner, "To Ethan Carter, the one who holds my heart." He raised an eyebrow, then gently closed the envelope without opening it. "You put a lot of effort into this. But I don't think now is the right time." His voice was as light as a passing breeze, but to Isabella it struck like a storm tearing down walls. She forced a smile, fighting back tears. "Why? Can't you give me a chance?" Ethan unzipped a pocket of his backpack and pulled out a thick math notebook, handing her a page of half-written formulas. "Look here. I need to focus on the upcoming university entrance exams. If I get distracted by romance, I won't score high enough for the scholarship. Understand?" His tone was not harsh, but its core was unyielding. Isabella lowered her head, her eyes shimmered with unshed tears. "I understand. But I still hope that one day you'll see me with different eyes." Ethan nodded politely, offering the customary consolation, then turned and walked into the classroom. The door closed firmly behind his decisive footsteps, leaving Isabella standing like a statue. Silently, she backed into the hallway, clutching the envelope like a piece of her own pain. Her golden hair fell over her face as she stared at the tiled floor. All her plans, all her hopes, dissolved in the cold emptiness around her. At midday, Isabella returned to the library, the place of so many failures, and sat at her usual spot. She opened her notebook, studied the flowing lines of her own handwriting, then tore pages from the book. "I love you. I hope you'll give me a chance. But if you can't, I will wait." The ink smeared with tear stains. Isabella closed her eyes, drew a deep breath, then tore the page to shreds. Fragments fluttered to the floor like she was freeing herself from invisible chains. She stood, gathered the scraps, and cast them onto an inner blaze of hope. She would never give up. Even if she couldn't win Ethan now, she believed her genuine feelings would one day touch his heart. Reflecting inwardly, Isabella understood the real reason Ethan refused, not because she was unworthy, but because he had set limits for himself. He feared that ambition would stand in the way of his family's expectations, that love might cost him the chance to change his life. So she vowed to herself, "Ethan, I will become unforgettable. Even if I have to prove it through my actions, I will." The final bell of the day rang, shattering the atmosphere of despair. Isabella picked up the shredded paper and tossed it into the trash, then walked out into the schoolyard with eyes alight with determination. Her journey to win Ethan's heart was only just beginning. Around mid-May, when summer's warm breeze first whispered through the air, Westwood buzzed with excitement over the final senior year assembly. Hallways were draped in vibrant flags, and the 12th graders whispered about the university entrance exams and upcoming farewell parties. Isabella was no exception, yet behind her eyes lingered a hidden worry. That day, she received a phone call from her mother while waiting for Ethan and her friends to pose for commemorative photos at the school gate. Her mother's voice trembled. "Isabella, listen. The audit results are in. The losses are too severe. The shareholders have demanded we liquidate certain divisions immediately. The subsidiary responsible may have to be dissolved." It felt as if an invisible hand choked Isabella's heart. She struggled to stay calm as she replied softly, "Mom, you mean the conglomerate is in crisis?" "Yes, dear. There's an emergency board meeting next month. If things don't improve, our entire family's future is at risk. You must come home right away. I need you. On the phone, the echo of Ethan's dorm room doorbell rang faintly. Isabella hurriedly ended the call, her vision blurred with tears, but she still managed to smile when Ethan raised his camera. Isabella. Smile. This will be our last moment together on the high school grounds. She bit her lip and forced a bright grin. Okay. Say cheese. Her eyes swept over the glass facade of the building where so many memories lived. Inside, turmoil raged, but outside she kept her composure. That evening, after a simple class farewell party, Isabella returned to the family mansion in the city center. The once warm house felt deserted and silent, no servants bustling about, no reassuring glow from the lamps. On her mother's desk lay stacks of financial reports inked entirely in red. Her father, the chairman, sat slumped in his chair, disheveled, eyes vacant. You were supposed to be heading abroad for university soon. Why are you coming back? He muttered to himself. Mother asked me to handle family affairs, father. We can't abandon the company in its hour of need. Isabella carried a small suitcase to her room and glanced at the family portrait on the wall, her parents' radiant smiles, her own crowned in youthful promise. Now that princess would have to relinquish her crown and face a cruel reality. That night, she opened her laptop and read the company's dire warning email. Without restructuring, the conglomerate will collapse before the end of Q3. She pressed her lips together, fighting back tears as she wrote her final senior year journal entry. Today, I mark the last memories with friends at Westwood, but my heart aches knowing I must leave everything behind. Ethan must not know. If I break down, he'll only pity me. I can't let that happen. The next morning, Isabella did not go to school. She quietly left the group chat, changed her contact email, and packed her pain into that small suitcase. She boarded a late-night flight to stay temporarily with her uncle, whose modest café sat on the outskirts of a foreign country. Throughout the long flight, she watched city lights slip away below like rivers of brilliance. She missed Westwood, the classrooms, and Ethan's silent figure against the snow. One day I will return, she whispered. I must be strong. I will survive. In that new land, Isabella threw herself into work as a barista and server at her uncle's café. Each morning greeted her with the scent of coffee. She was too busy to dwell on the past. Yet deep inside, after every cappuccino she poured, her thoughts still lingered on Ethan, the hero of her silent pursuit. And back in Westwood, since the day she left without saying goodbye, Ethan still attended class faithfully. He couldn't understand why Isabella, so lively in freshman year, had vanished. The cheerful laughter that once filled every break was gone. He felt an unfamiliar emptiness, but the rigors of exam prep and scholarship pressure drew him back to his books. Still, on sleepless nights spent solving problems, the image of the blonde girl in the library haunted him. The upheaval of senior year had closed a luminous chapter, but it also opened a new phase full of surprises, where fate would weave two distant paths together. On the first day of summer week, when the morning sun first slanted through the living room windows of the Montgomery mansion, the air suddenly turned stifling. The front doorbell rang insistently. Security guards and corporate lawyers stood rigidly on the doorstep, their faces grim. Margaret, Isabella's mother, stepped forward, striving for calm. Please tell me your purpose. The lawyer cleared his throat. At the request of the bank and our shareholders, Montgomery and Company has officially defaulted on its loans. Today, asset appraisers will arrive to inventory and seize property for debt repayment. Margaret's knees buckled. She retreated inside, trembling. The vast mansion, once her family's pride, now bore only the sorrowful gaze of its owners. Footsteps hurried, appraisers scribbled notes, boxes were packed onto trucks, everything proceeded quietly, but like a sudden storm that swept away all memories. Upstairs, Isabella was gathering books for a mock exam week, unaware of the turmoil below. Suddenly, her mother burst into the room, eyes red. Isabella. You must come down immediately. Startled, Isabella asked, Mother. What's happened? Margaret grasped her daughter's hand and sobbed. The company has been seized. We've lost everything. Isabella's heart froze. She went to the window and saw cranes loading the family's four Mercedes and Bentleys onto a truck. Priceless paintings and family heirlooms were already boxed up. The scene before her was a waking nightmare. I can't let anyone see me like this, she whispered. Mother, I'll go somewhere and rebuild from scratch. Margaret could only nod, her tears flowing. That night, Isabella quietly packed a few changes of clothes, her journals, the photo of her and Ethan in the library, and the cash her mother had given her. She stowed everything in a small suitcase. Without a word of farewell to friends or a message to Ethan, fearing she would falter if she spoke, she slipped out. In the courtyard, the extended Montgomery family loaded suitcases onto the old SUV her father once used for business trips. He was absent too, off at an emergency shareholders meeting. Isabella sat behind the wheel, pretending to study a map, tears stinging her eyes. Would Ethan even notice I'd vanished like a dream? She wondered. The SUV rolled onto the highway toward the international airport. Behind her, the mansion's lights winked out one by one. Isabella glanced once more in the rearview mirror. In that moment, loneliness and regret overwhelmed her. She missed Ethan's gentle smile, the way he once turned a page to help her. But she knew she could not return, at least, not yet. People said home is where the heart is, but for Isabella, her home had fallen apart. She needed to start over from zero. When the plane took off, the city lights receded beneath the clouds. Isabella closed her eyes and thought, Ethan, if I prove I'm strong enough, I hope you'll wait for me. And in the silent night over Westwood, it seemed the campus held its breath, waiting for that distant memory to return. The next morning, the bell for the first university entrance mock exam rang as steadily as ever. But for Ethan, there was no longer the familiar rush of problem-solving or the burning desire to outdo himself. Instead, there was a vague emptiness, his heart fluttering with an unfamiliar ache. He entered advanced math class, his eyes scanning the rows of desks for Isabella's figure, but the seat by the window remained empty. In the past half-year, she had never missed a study group session, and all their shared moments correcting homework replayed in his mind in slow motion. When the teacher mentioned the final assignment for Group 12B, Ethan drew a deep breath and tapped his fingers on the desk. As the period ended, he slung his backpack over his shoulder and resolved to search for her. Her locker. It's at the far end of the hall. Ethan made his way down the corridor, his gaze fixed on the row of lockers. Number 138, Isabella Montgomery written in pink, now stood sealed tight. No notes, no photos, no notebooks marked with exam tips. He pressed his ear to the lock, hoping for the rustle of paper, but found only silence. Timidly, he flipped through their shared curriculum planner and found her familiar marginalia, every line a glance, every underline a hope. He managed a hollow laugh. Where did she go? Ethan headed to the Golden Trio room, where Marissa and Claire were discussing history exercises. Hearing his name, they fell silent, eyes glistening. Has she stopped messaging you? She didn't show up at the bookstore yesterday either, Marissa said casually, though her hand trembled. I've tried contacting her, every message is still unread, Claire added, voice catching. Ethan nodded, lowering his head with a pained expression. I'll find out. After school, his bicycle carried him along the brick path to the Montgomery estate, his heart pounding. At the familiar iron gate, he saw a bright red for sale or liquidation notice and a stamped seizure order. The driveway lay deserted, no servants, no luxury cars. He called softly, Isabella? But no answer. He walked into the courtyard and drew back the living room curtain, papers strewn across the U-shaped desk, a laptop screen dark, dinner dishes abandoned on a tray. Everything looked normal, as if she had simply vanished without a word. Ethan sank onto the sofa, staring at the family portrait, her parents and Isabella in that radiant smile. Now the frame lay empty, its mounting screws left in the wall. His heart clenched. He pedaled away toward the little cafe where she used to study last year. Montgomery's corner had become Maple and Beans. He asked the new owner, a young woman wiping tables, "Do you remember an Isabella Montgomery?" "Oh. A student by that name came here often, but toward the end of the year she stopped showing up. No one knows where she went." No one knew her whereabouts, only the ache in his chest. That night, Ethan returned to the dorm to find a small scrap of paper tucked behind a file folder. If you don't see her, change your approach. It was the note Isabella had once written to remind him to study when she missed a session. Under the dim yellow lamp, he opened his draft email to her, poised to type a message, but his fingers froze, discouraged. Hi, Is. He deleted the draft and stared out the window. Houses drifted past beneath the gathering clouds, and a fervent resolve rose in him. He would find her, wherever she was, to hear her reasons, to soothe her pain, and, perhaps, to hold on to the girl he cared about. Yet the university entrance exams loomed, the pressure unrelenting, and his own family obligations forbade neglect. Ethan told himself, I'll study. And then I will find her. Two parallel tasks, but every time he closed his eyes, Isabella's smile urged him forward. Tomorrow, he would go to the city library to comb through newspaper archives for Montgomery and Company bankruptcy. He would visit the bank to request relevant documents. He would map out a route, from Westwood to the country where she'd taken refuge. And in that tapestry of sweet and painful memories, Ethan knew one thing: this void in his heart could not be filled with books, it could only be filled by hers. The graduation exams had passed, and the ceremony to receive high school diplomas was held in an atmosphere both solemn and bittersweet. But for Ethan, every certificate and congratulatory handshake felt unreal, because he still had no answer to the mystery of Isabella's disappearance. One afternoon, after finishing his college orientation test, Ethan went to the local press archive, where old issues of the Westwood Gazette were stored. In the pile of May editions, he found the full report. Montgomery and Company declares bankruptcy, assets seized for debt repayment. The article detailed how the bank had frozen a series of office buildings, luxury villas, and supercars belonging to the Montgomery family. It quoted the handling attorney: the family transferred its capital overseas and may restructure the company in Singapore. Huddled in a corner of the library, Ethan read and reread the lines with blurry eyes. Singapore. He whispered. She could be there. Back in his dorm, he opened his laptop and visited the Civil Aviation Authority's website. He entered Montgomery in the passenger search field. The result: a round-trip ticket under the name I. Montgomery, departing May 20th on the direct flight from Westwood International to Singapore Changi. An economy class seat booked one day after Isabella's absence from the class farewell. His heart clenched. She left quietly just hours after her family's bankruptcy became official. Ethan fought back tears, quickly noted the flight details and seat number, and carefully captured a screenshot, proof of his next resolve. Wasting no time, he called his friend Marissa. Do you know where Isabella's uncle's cafe is located? Marissa hesitated, then said, her uncle runs a cafe called Maple and Beans in Jurong, Singapore. She said she visits sometimes, so she's probably there now. He jotted down the address, 123 Jalan Serangoon, Jurong East, and that night drew a map from Changi Airport to the cafe, marking train stations, bus stops, estimating travel time and costs, as if planning a real journey. Before making further plans, Ethan decided to try calling. He dialed Maple and Beans. A woman's voice answered. Maple and Beans, hello. Keeping calm, Ethan said quickly, hello, I'm an old classmate of Isabella Montgomery. The woman's voice faltered, then replied, oh, Jim, right? She mentions you all the time. But she's busy helping her uncle now. Could you leave a number and she'll call you back? He noted her promise, she'll call, and hung up. His heart tightened. Even over the phone, he sensed a strange tremor in her voice. The June calendar on his dorm room wall spun without a single note for tomorrow except college prep. He told himself, the exam is important, but finding her is more important. That evening, Ethan opened his email and drafted, Dear Sir/Madam, I am looking for Ms. Isabella Montgomery, former student at Westwood High. Could you kindly assist me with her current contact details? Sincerely, Ethan Carter. He sent it and closed his eyes. Before him appeared Isabella in a white dress, her hair loose, her eyes bright, smiling encouragement. He knew he must finish this exam swiftly, then set off for Singapore with only a small suitcase and an unquenchable longing. Tomorrow he would sit the most important exam of his life. But in his heart was already a promise. After I overcome this challenge, I will find you, by any means, even if it costs countless sleepless nights. By the faint desk lamp, Ethan signed off his email, then looked out the window at the night sky. Isabella, I will not leave you alone again. When the clock struck midnight, he shut his computer, closed his test notebook, and felt more resolute than ever. His journey from senior year Westwood to Singapore was beginning to unfold. 6 years passed like a roaring river, erasing memories even as it carried both of them onward. Since leaving Westwood, Isabella's world narrowed to the cozy yet humble space of Maple and Beans in Jurong East, Singapore. She began as a cashier and busser, then gradually learned to brew coffee and manage finances. At first, each morning she felt bewildered by the bitter aroma of espresso and the intricate techniques of latte art. But with every cappuccino poured, every pastry served, she rediscovered joy in creating warmth for her customers. Outside cafe hours, Isabella attended nighttime online courses in barista skills and hospitality management. After closing up, she would hunch over her laptop until 2 or 3 in the morning, meticulously taking notes on brewing formulas and service standards. Through rainy Singapore monsoons, she once shivered at a bus stop because she couldn't afford a taxi. Through blazing sun, she rested on the curb, exhausted by a rush of customers. But each time she grew weary, she remembered her mother's words, "Be strong for your future." And in those moments, Ethan's image in the Westwood Library would flicker into her mind, giving her fresh strength. By the end of her second year, Isabella earned a professional barista certification and took on evening shift management responsibilities. She proposed a fusion European pastry menu, personally sourcing imported flour and chocolate, turning Maple and Beans into a favorite spot among Jurong's youth. Her confidence gloomed, and she secretly thought, when I meet Ethan again, I won't be that fragile schoolgirl. Meanwhile, in Boston, after the grueling college entrance exams, Ethan received a full scholarship to MIT. Over 3 years, he immersed himself in applied mathematics and computer science, publishing 2 papers in international journals. Graduating with highest honors, he went on as a research fellow at Harvard. 8 years after leaving Westwood High, Ethan defended his doctoral thesis on financial predictive models, a formidable achievement for someone from humble beginnings. At age 28, he was invited to join the Westwood University faculty as an assistant professor in applied mathematics. The applied math department, set beside a man-made lake on Westwood's verdant campus, became his daily backdrop. Each morning he strolled under oak trees, briefcase in hand, delighted to see students engrossed in his lectures. He still prepared lessons at 5 a.m. and carried a pocket watch, a keepsake from his school days. Though separated by distance, neither forgot the other. Isabella secretly checked Westwood University's website and saw his portrait, Dr. Ethan Carter. Tears glimmered as she read PhD, assistant professor. He succeeded. He's the man I once pursued, she thought. And Ethan, when teaching about financial models, often referenced an inspiring story of a girl who overcame great adversity. In his mind, that girl was always Isabella. He never told anyone, but her memory remained his greatest motivation. In May of that 6th year, Isabella received an unexpected invitation from Westwood's Office of International Partnerships. You are invited to speak at the F&B Entrepreneurship and Development Workshop at Westwood University in early July. We seek experts in café management to share real-world lessons. Her heart fluttered as she reread the email. It was a chance to return home, face the past, and perhaps see Ethan again. Isabella paused her finger over the confirm attendance button, eyes misting. I'm strong enough now. It's time to go back. At the same time, in the math department office, Ethan reviewed his teaching schedule for the semester's end. A colleague mentioned the F&B workshop for industry partners, then the name Montgomery in Singapore appeared on the printed schedule. Guest speaker, Montgomery, 0507. He halted mid-pen stroke, his gaze lighting up. 6 years of separation had come full circle with an invitation ordained by fate. Now both stood on parallel paths, poised to reunite at the place of old, with new identities and renewed hearts. Early on the first day of July, the air at Westwood University was cool and fresh, mingled with the bright fragrance of blooming flame trees. The familiar red brick corridors, the stone benches lining the pathways, and the sweeping oaks created a scene both nostalgic and new. Isabella crossed the campus gate with her small suitcase, her heart skipping a beat as soon as she saw the main hall, the very spot where she'd once taken her high school graduation photos. She draped a cream-colored blazer over her shoulders and held her presentation folder in hand. Her first few steps faltered beneath the trees of memory, but she told herself, "I've prepared thoroughly. This is my chance to prove myself, and to see him again." In the grand foyer, a volunteer offered her a name tag reading Ms. I. Montgomery, guest speaker. Isabella smiled softly as she pinned it to her lapel. The nervousness began to give way to pride. She slipped into the dressing room, adjusted the tag, and smoothed her hair in the mirror. For the first time in 6 years, she stood tall before her reflection, not the fragile debutante of the past, but a confident woman. Just then, Ethan, wearing a smart black suit and carrying his portfolio, stepped into the hallway near the auditorium entrance. He was checking the guest list and event schedule when his eyes fell on the name tag on the wall, I. Montgomery. He froze, his heart leaping. She's back. Ethan quickened his pace, searching for a vantage point. From a distance he spotted Isabella's assured stride. Morning light filtered through the leaves, casting golden highlights in her hair. He inhaled deeply, wanting to approach, but paused, fearing he might shatter the perfect memory he'd kept alive. "Miss Montgomery?" His warm, familiar voice rang beside her. Isabella started and turned, curiosity brightening her eyes as she recognized the now professor before her, Ethan Carter. She offered a polite smile. "Professor Carter. It's been a long time." He returned her smile warmly. "You've changed so much. I'm delighted you accepted the invitation." At that glance, a flood of emotions surged through her: excitement, apprehension, happiness, and nerves all at once. Isabella bowed her head. "Thank you for welcoming me. I've been so looking forward to this." Ethan nodded and led her on a brief tour of the auditorium. On the large screen inside, the title Entrepreneurship in F&B, a barista's journey appeared alongside the Maple and Beans logo. Isabella glanced up with a proud smile. Standing beside her, Ethan observed her expression, knowing in that moment that his decision to pursue her years ago had been right. Just before she stepped onto the stage, Isabella drew a steadying breath and searched for a moment alone. Ethan gently placed a hand on her shoulder. "You'll do wonderfully. Just be yourself." She met his eyes and, without words, they understood each other. Isabella smiled with confidence and walked onto the podium. Applause broke out, her heartbeat skipped a beat, then surrendered to the warm support of the audience. After her presentation, the auditorium resounded with prolonged applause and the rapid flashes of phone cameras. Isabella descended the stage, her heart still racing. She smiled at the audience, accepting their greetings and praise. Yet deep in her eyes lay a vague unease. "I'm back where I started, but everything has changed." In the reception area outside the hall, faculty members and business guests gathered around the buffet table. Isabella hesitated by the tray of European pastries mixed with mochi and quiche, striving to appear composed. Suddenly she heard someone call, "Ivy?" A woman of her age, with her hair down, ran up excitedly. "Don't you remember me, Kim? I volunteered to help you prepare the workshop back then. Wow, you've done so well." Isabella forced a smile and embraced Kim. "Kim. I can't believe I'm seeing you here." But while Kim chatted animatedly, Isabella only managed a brief smile tinged with sadness before slipping away toward the refreshment table. She sipped green tea, trying to hide the feeling that "I don't deserve this" under so many admiring glances. Ethan approached her, holding 2 steaming cups of black coffee. "I thought you might need these." Isabella took a cup, her eyes anxious and hesitant. "Thank you, Professor Carter." He nodded warmly. "Whenever you'd like, we can take a walk around campus and chat." She squinted, her heart skipping a beat. I'm fine. But today I'm a bit overwhelmed." He smiled understandingly. "Just relax. I'm happy to hear more from you." They left the buffet and strolled alongside the small lake on campus. A gentle summer breeze rustled through the old oaks, causing ripples on the water. Ethan looked up at the ancient tree. "You spoke so naturally and engagingly. I'm sure everyone felt the passion in your story." Isabella lifted her gaze to the sky, wiping sweat from her brow. "But I'm afraid I'm not good enough compared to you, compared to this place. You're a professor now, and I'm just a barista." Ethan paused and looked her in the eye. you are more than a barista. You overcame the greatest loss of your life, taught yourself, built a career from nothing. I admire your resilience." His sincere words cut through the clouds like sunlight, warming Isabella's heart. Yet she glanced down again. I just want to be strong." On the flagstone path, sunlight filtering through leaves, Isabella halted and stared at the shimmering lake. "Could you give me some advice? About feelings?" Ethan grinned mischievously. "I'm no love guru, but I can listen." Blushing, Isabella turned away to find a bench. Ethan followed and gently pointed. "There's a bench over there. Sit. I'll be right here." She sat, hugging her coffee, peeking at him over her shoulder. Silence stretched between them, broken only by birdsong. Ethan sat beside her, keeping a respectful distance. "Today, did you feel anything special?" he asked softly. Isabella shook her head instead of answering. She looked down, lips trembling. I'm scared that if I admit it, I'll get hurt again." He reflected. "Hurt is unavoidable. But you don't need to feel ashamed of your past. I want to build a future with you, will you let me?" Isabella felt her heart skip a beat. She looked up, eyes glistening with determination. I want to try." Ethan smiled gently and brushed her back in a comforting gesture. "I'll be by your side every step of the way." In that peaceful moment, Isabella's confusion gave way to hope. For the first time in 6 years, she knew she was not alone. After their lakeside walk, Ethan did not let go of Isabella's hand and continued showering her with small acts of care. The next morning, when Isabella arrived at the library to prepare her workshop slides, she found her work notebook on the table with a small note. "Read section 3 of the slides carefully. I've marked it for you." The neat handwriting made her smile. All morning, each time she opened her slides, she discovered pale blue arrows and encouraging notes. "You are doing great. Don't forget to review the Starbucks case study." These notes appeared in her books, in her portfolio, even in the box of pastries Ethan had sent her. At lunchtime, Ethan invited Isabella to the faculty lounge, where he had set out 2 cappuccinos bearing the maple and beans logo. He smiled. "I asked the barista to make these just for you. I hope you like them." She accepted the cup, her gaze shy. "Thank you. You always take such thoughtful care of me." Ethan sat across from her, his tone sincere. "To me, you deserve nothing less. You've sacrificed so much." Over the following days, whenever Isabella needed equipment in the lab or a meeting room, Ethan appeared to help her carry speakers, adjust the projector, check the microphone. Once, when a cable became loose and she stood awkwardly on stage, he quietly slipped up, reconnected it, and gave her a knowing wink, as if to say, "I'm always here." On the weekend evening after her workshop's great success, Ethan led her to the main foyer under the old oak. Golden sunlight filtered through the leaves, creating a warm glow. He looked at her, hesitating, then exhaled. "You know, for 6 years I never forgot you. Every day I wanted to find you, to see your smile. When you wrote your slides, when you spoke about maple and beans, when you shared your passion, I felt a reason to keep going." Tears welled in Isabella's eyes, her heart felt like it would burst. He continued. "When you disappeared, I tried everything, tracking flight tickets, calling the cafe number, emailing the student union. And now here we are. I don't want to miss this chance. Will you give me the chance to love you, to care for you for the rest of our lives?" Silence hung for a heartbeat. A gentle breeze rustled the leaves as if providing a soundtrack for their decision. Isabella nodded softly, tears streaming down her cheeks. I agree." Ethan beamed, taking her hands in his. "Thank you. I promise you'll never feel alone or insecure again." In that warm space, Thera shone brightly, marking a new beginning. Ethan's steadfast, heartfelt confession had shattered every barrier in Isabella's heart, allowing love to take root and flourish. Once they were officially a couple, Ethan and Isabella embarked on their first dates, simple yet filled with meaning. The afternoon after her workshop, Ethan invited Isabella to the small café by the campus lake. He had reserved a table by the window overlooking the water, where dappled sunlight danced through the trees. On the table sat 2 fragrant lattes and a plate of durian pastries, her favorite treat, which she had unapologetically shared on their first meeting. Isabella felt shy entering this familiar yet transformed space. She inhaled the vanilla scent as she lifted her cup. Ethan nodded. "Do you like it? I asked the barista to make it exactly how you taught me." She smiled. "It's wonderful. Thank you." They chatted lightly about her plans after the workshop, about updates at Maple and Beans, and gradually drifted into personal interests, films, books. Isabella found the conversation far less tense than before and freely shared her dream of launching an eco-friendly cafe chain. Ethan listened attentively, offering occasional suggestions and encouragement. After their coffee, Ethan suggested a stroll around campus. They crossed the wooden bridge over the lake, their hands brushing the cool railing. Beneath, golden fish swam quietly, a silent affirmation of the moment's peace. Ethan paused and asked, "Do you want to know what I like most about you?" Isabella blushed and looked down. "I'm afraid to ask." He gently guided her to halt and looked into her eyes. "I love your resilience, your passion, and your smile." Her heart fluttered, yet worry lingered. I'm afraid I might burden you. You have so many responsibilities." Ethan smiled. "I want to spend my time with you." That evening, Ethan prepared dinner in his faculty apartment. He cooked fresh tomato basil pasta, simple but comforting. Isabella entered, tucking a strand of hair behind her ear, eyes lighting up at the aroma. "You made this yourself?" she asked in surprise. "Yes. I found the recipe online and tried it a few times until it was just right." She sat and raised her glass of red wine. "Thank you, Professor." "No, thank you, my love, for cooking for me." Ethan chuckled softly and refilled her glass. "If you're happy, I'm happy." By candlelight, they ate in warm silence, the only sounds the soft clinking of cutlery and their occasional whispers. Later, they sat by the window, watching the city lights come alive. Isabella nestled against Ethan's shoulder, feeling sheltered for the first time in years. On another evening, Ethan took Isabella to the university library, the place where he had studied and researched. Though it officially closed at 8 p.m., he had arranged with security to stay until 9. On the long table he placed 2 cups of hot chocolate and a stack of F&B entrepreneurship books. "Need more references?" he asked. "Yes, I want to find materials on chain management." They worked side by side, exchanging notes under the warm light as the silent bookshelves watched over them. At 9 p.m., Ethan whispered, "The library's closing now." Hand in hand, they walked out, their footsteps echoing on the wooden floor. In that moment, Isabella realized that studying together and sharing their passions was the best way to understand each other. At the end of their first week of dating, Ethan gifted Isabella a leather journal engraved with her name and the words, "Our journey ahead," written together. She hugged him, moved to tears. "I will write the most beautiful pages." Ethan kissed her hair. "And I will be the first to read them." Though small, these first dates laid a strong foundation for their love. With every moment, Ethan's actions proved his devotion. With every smile, Isabella gave him courage to love even more fiercely. Nearly a month after becoming a couple, Ethan and Isabella's love was in its sweetest phase. Yet life always brings trials to test the strength of one's resolve. Westwood University's Office of International Partnerships launched the Seed Fund program to support student startups. Isabella decided to apply, proposing to expand Maple and Beans into a series of pop-up cafes across campus. Her project made it to the final pitch round, but required seed capital for a pilot run. She busied herself finalizing the plan, budgeting for ingredients, hiring part-time staff, designing the booth, and crafting a marketing strategy. Everything seemed set until the funding results arrived. "Your project lacks sufficient financial evidence and does not qualify." The bad news crushed Isabella. She returned to the faculty residence, where Ethan had invited her to stay, and sank into a chair, eyes red. The financial burden she'd carried for 6 years crashed over her again. Have I never escaped that cycle of poverty? That evening, Ethan returned from teaching to find her silently rifling through her report. He sat beside her and gently asked, "You got the result?" Tears welled, and she nodded faintly. "My project wasn't approved." Refusing to let her face it alone, Ethan offered, "I'll help you prepare a supplemental presentation. I know some alumni who won the seed fund, they can review our proposal and give feedback." The next morning, they went to the startup support office together. Ethan connected with Jonathan, a successful F&B alumnus, who eagerly pointed out weaknesses in their cash flow projections and suggested surveying customer demand. Back home, Ethan and Isabella visited the lab, met friends for input, and collected data on student coffee habits. They crafted questionnaires and distributed them after classes and on weekends. After a week of nonstop work, they revised their slides, added figures, charts, and customer interview videos. Satisfied with the polished version, Isabella's eyes sparkled with newfound confidence. On the day of the second round results, they watched online together. When Maple and Beans pop-up appeared among the 10 projects receiving funding, Isabella threw herself into Ethan's arms, tears of joy streaming down her face. "I couldn't have done this without you." Ethan smiled and pulled a small coffee bean-shaped lapel pin from his pocket. "This is my lucky charm. From now on, you'll never be alone." This challenge not only secured the initial success of Maple and Beans pop-up but also deepened their bond. Isabella realized that her strength came not only from herself but from the unconditional love and support of Ethan. Under Westwood's early autumn sun, they walked hand in hand back to the residence, two hearts fortified together, ready for whatever lay ahead. After the triumph of Maple and Beans pop-up, optimism flooded Westwood University, yet even the brightest star can be briefly obscured. Soon after the funding announcement, some students began whispering about the professor-guest speaker relationship between Ethan and Isabella. "Is it true Professor Carter is dating that barista?" one asked. "I heard she was just an F&B invite, maybe they knew each other before," another speculated. Isabella's phone buzzed nonstop with curious and judgmental messages from old friends and strangers alike. The rumors spread on the university's internal network, creating an undercurrent of gossip. Parents and colleagues voiced concerns. This relationship could cause misunderstandings. Professor Carter should safeguard his image. Veiled comments appeared in faculty groups, and a few student publications ran sarcastic headlines. Amid this pressure, Ethan felt the weight for Isabella, she, sensitive to every watchful eye. At a small mathematics department meeting, a senior lecturer remarked, "We must maintain professional boundaries." Ethan rose and spoke firmly. "I deeply respect the university's policies. But to me, Ms. Montgomery is first and foremost a friend, a competent colleague. Our personal relationship does not affect my teaching or our joint projects." His resolute, warm tone silenced the room and diffused the forced criticism. After the meeting, Isabella sat alone in a quiet hallway, tears falling as she wondered, "Am I doing something wrong? Do I deserve to be with him?" Afraid of harming Ethan's career, she drafted an email to the student union to withdraw her project, but her heart was in turmoil. That afternoon, Ethan found her in the lab editing her report. He placed a hand on her shoulder. "You can't just disappear. I need you, not only at work but in my life." Isabella looked up, seeing unwavering love in his eyes. She nodded, tears streaming. I'm afraid of disappointing you." He smiled. "You will never disappoint me. We'll prove to everyone that love and professionalism can coexist." With a warm embrace and unwavering determination, they vowed to face and dispel all prejudice. As the Maple and Beans pop-up project continued to shine, the rumors subsided, testimony to the value of genuine ability and heartfelt devotion. With the rumors settled and Maple and Beans pop-up earning widespread praise from students and school leaders, campus life grew peaceful again. And in the glow of that success, Ethan and Isabella's relationship turned a new page full of hope. One early autumn afternoon, after dismantling their pop-up booth on the final day, Ethan reached for the last sample coffee box. Watching her tidy up the stall with focused determination and a radiant smile, his heart stirred deeply. He said softly, "You did so well. The project exceeded all expectations." Isabella turned, her eyes shining with pride. "I'm grateful you stood by me. I couldn't have done it without you." Though only a few steps apart, they felt the world shrink around them. They stood in silence, feeling the bond that had withstood every trial. After cleaning up, Ethan invited Isabella for a walk in the small lakeside park. The sun dipped toward the horizon, painting the water in hues of pink and orange. On a wooden bench, he gently took her hand. "Do you like this view? I've always wanted to watch the sunset with you." Isabella nodded, resting her head on his shoulder. "I love it. Everything's more beautiful with you." A breeze carried the scent of wild grass. In that moment, she felt her heart beating calm but strong, a heart that had weathered pain and now fully opened. The next day, Ethan surprised Isabella with a small framed photo, a snapshot of them at the pop-up booth, smiles illuminated by festive lights. Below it, in neat script, "Every moment with you is a precious memory." Holding the frame, Isabella was overcome with emotion. She met him later in the lab, where he had first helped her with the mic, and he appeared with a warm smile. "Do you like the gift?" She returned his smile, eyes bright. "I love it. You always know how to surprise me." Their laughter echoed among the machines and bookshelves, a testament to love's renewal. No longer the lovesick debutante of old, Isabella now walked the campus with confident strides. Faculty and students alike regarded her with respect. She had proven her ability and resilience, and found a safe harbor beside the man willing to journey with her. Ethan stood by her side, gazing at her with adoration. "You've changed so much, but to me, you're still the bravest, most genuine girl I know." She squeezed his hand. "Thank you for helping me see my worth. I love you." Under the autumn sunset by the old oak, their first kiss sealed an arduous journey and unveiled a new chapter brimming with dreams and happiness. Morning sunlight filtered gently through the ancient oaks, painting warm streaks along the paths. Westwood University had entered summer break. The campus was quieter but rich with memories. On a bench by the lake, Ethan and Isabella, now a steadfast couple, shared a peaceful moment after months of busy days. Riding the wave of their pop-up success, Isabella secured seed funding to open the first permanent Maple and Beans Café right on campus. That morning, the grand opening took place, a wooden sign bearing the cafe's name, rustic tables and chairs, and walls adorned with photos from their journey. Isabella wore her new barista uniform with a small logo on her chest, her eyes glowing as the first customer stepped in. Ethan stood behind the counter, preparing a special latte for her, the latte of beginnings, its foam art shaped like a heart. He placed the cup before her and smiled. "For you, the first cup." Isabella accepted it and teased, "I love you." Their laughter filled the cafe, a signal of a hopeful new chapter. That afternoon, Isabella went to the main hall to attend a guest speaker graduation ceremony. Dressed in a pristine white gown, holding her certificate in coffee and F&B management, she walked on stage when her name was announced. Her eyes scanned the audience for the man who had stood by her and saw Ethan peeking from backstage, applauding proudly. After the ceremony, he handed her a small envelope pinned to his lapel. "Open it." Inside was a delicate card inscribed, "With my PhD in mathematics and computer science, I promise to build every dream with you. Love, E." Hesitant for a moment, Isabella then wrapped her arms around him amid the fiery blossoms of flame trees, a crystallization of all their hope. In the days ahead, they planned together. Ethan would help design an order management app for the cafe chain, Isabella would train baristas and expand beyond campus. They earmarked a short business trip to Taiwan, the home of artisanal coffee, to learn more. Walking hand in hand along the familiar red brick pathway, smiles on their faces, the lake glinted in the distance and swallows wheeled among the trees. Each step marked the solidity of their love. At day's end, as dusk settled, Ethan and Isabella sat together on the cafe's front steps, enjoying pastries and watching the first evening lights flicker on. He gently brushed her hair. "You've come so far. I'm so proud of you." She replied softly, her voice warm in the tranquil air. "And I'm proud to have you by my side." A tender kiss closed one day and opened a broad, bright future, a new happiness, full and endless, for two hearts that had persevered through every trial. They stepped into that future with faith and love, proven by time, ready to face new challenges and write the next chapters of their story together.